Morning. It's Tuesday, November 29th, and this morning I'm going to talk about the Ukraine. And I have been upset with the entire thought process that has been going on for weeks and months in association with this special military operation that the Russians have started, and they have wreaked havoc on the Ukraine. And our position and the position of our allies have been not to provide Ukraine with deadly weapons, and everything that we have provided could only go just so far. So they haven't given Ukraine any weapons that could reach deep into Russia. I don't know how deep into really means. But we need to give them something so that they can get over the border and maybe cause certain destruction within the Russian territory, which would make the people of Russia fully aware that there is a war going on and they are not that safe anymore. And maybe they would rise up against Putin and his cadre and get this thing to stop. Well, finally I see that the U.S. is weighing the possibility of sending a 100-mile strike weapon to Ukraine. Now, this weapon is really not so special. It's a small bomb, a precision bomb that will fit onto abundantly available rockets. So we have lots of rockets that are not armed, and this bomb would be put onto those rockets, and it would allow Kyiv to strike far behind Russian lines as we continue to struggle with the demand for more arms. It seems like not only the Ukraine wants more arms, but our allies in Europe need more arms, because the arms that they have been supplying to Ukraine are also manufactured by the United States. So we have become the armory for most of this war, even though we're not shipping everything ourselves. But we are supplying it to the Eastern European countries that are helping Ukraine, and now they need more supplies. And we have to get cracking, So Boeing has proposed this bomb, and it's called the small diameter bomb. And it's one of a half a dozen new plans for munitions to put into production for the Ukraine and also for our Eastern European allies. So there's a big deal, but there's work to be done. Now, if we could get through all the rigmarole that the article talked about and all the permissions that they need, then this bomb could be delivered as early as the spring of 2023. And this bomb would be combined with the M26 rocket motor. And we have plenty of M26 rocket motors in our inventories right now. We have a lot of that stuff is left over from our escape from Afghanistan. And so it's sitting somewhere that we can get our hands on it quickly. It's not like we're going to have to produce everything from scratch. Another factor that's associated with the stuff that was left over from Afghanistan is that these things are not easily fitted into some of the current equipment that's lying around. So there will have to be adjustments made, but we can do that. We're up to that, We can handle that situation, but it may take a little bit longer. And another factor that's involved somehow in this entire situation is the cost. They want to be able to manufacture these weapons, this new design, etc., at a reasonable cost. Otherwise, it would be bad. And the cost has to be approved somehow or other by some government agency. And another big factor in this thing is that to make sure that we don't deplete ourselves of our supply of weapons, because we have to keep a lot on hand just to make sure that China knows that we're ready in case we have to use them. We don't want to be left short with China looking over our shoulder. I don't know that China really would even attempt that. But that's the thinking of a lot of people in the U.S. government. We have to be careful. We have to show ourselves as a military armed force because of China. And I guess that thinking is appropriate. Better to be safe than sorry, I guess. Now, Boeing and some other organizations and the U.S. government have really been very quiet about this whole operation because they're declining any comment about providing any special capabilities to Ukraine. Because I don't know why, but I guess they don't want the Russians to be aware of this. And I think that it would be appropriate if the Russians heard we were going to do this thing, and maybe that would scare the shit out of them. But in any event, the U.S. is trying to take a quiet position on this entire situation. And meanwhile, the U.S. has also ignored and rebuffed requests for the 185-mile missile. And that has a whole bunch of letters and everything, but it doesn't matter. It can go 185 miles. That would allow Ukraine to hit valuable military targets that have been out of reach. But we're not going to give them that missile. We're giving them a 100-mile missile. And here's what I really think we ought to do. We can't keep quiet about this entire thing. We should stand up and tell the world that on such and such a date, we are going to do this. And we are going to supply Ukraine with everything under the sun so that they can kick Russia's ass. And that should be a worldwide announcement. And that should be an announcement that we cannot fail to meet. In other words, if we say April 1st is the deadline, that's got to be the day that these things start getting delivered. And you can say, on such and such a date, we're going to be delivering, and if you don't get your ass out of Ukraine in 2 weeks, we're going to start firing these things all over your country. We need to do something like that to scare the shit out of Putin or to make him react. And if he goes to the nuclear button, then we have to be ready for that too. So this pussyfooting around has got to end. We have to give Ukraine everything they can possibly get to win this war. And if we don't do that, and if we don't say that we're doing that, then we're making a big mistake. All right? We're making a big mistake. So we can't afford to be doing these things and not letting the whole world know what's going on. And let the whole world know, let China know, let North Korea know that we mean business. It's a terrible thing to be a peace-loving country and have to say something like that. But we cannot have countries, individuals, that are allowed to take advantage of situations because we don't want to fight anymore. And because we wasted 20 years of our lives in Afghanistan. So I think that this is a very important action that we are taking, and we better deliver those missiles, those bombs, as fast as we can. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.